So let's jump into these topics because I think it's anyway going to be a little bit too long. I hope we will fit into 1 hour, and my idea is to deal with the injuries topic, treatments and injuries, and the mental health topic. And if we have time for the research methods, we will continue with this, but maybe these research methods will be an introduction to the next episode if we are going to have a next episode of this. So really excuse me because of my dog, but yeah, I hope he will chill at one point. So first of all, Johannes, because this is also your profession partly, I would ask you about your experience with dance students about the most typical dance injuries, and also to say a few words about yourself for those who don't know you, please.
Yeah, so I just have a brief introduction why I have those two jobs. But I think Sarah also knows my story. No, it's just Yola who doesn't know. So I started dancing in Rotterdam, and then I had an injury in my groin, and I couldn't walk anymore. I had an inflammation in my groin, and no one could help me. I was in all the dance specialist centers in Amsterdam, Den Haag, and so, but no one could help me, so I had to stop. And I went back to Austria with a wish to understand what happened. And so I started physiotherapy, and I did other stuff like osteopathy and so on. And at the end of the day, I found out what my problem was, which was not the conventional way, the conventional medicine. And so I decided to gather more knowledge in the functional movements and also in the functional connections within the different body systems to be able to prevent other people from what I experienced. And that's why we started, like with Randy, my wife, we started dancing anatomy, teaching, and so on. So this is my background now, teaching at the university. And so the biggest problem or the biggest challenge with dance injuries or working with dancers, not only with dance students, but with dancers in general, is that we have here people who have a high professional sports attitude, but like the scientific things that we know from sports science is not used in dance, because dance is also an art form. So it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid between high professional sport and art. And most of the time, due to since dance is a side wing in our art culture, to be honest. So before there is music and there's acting, and then there comes dance, and contemporary dance is even further away. There is a lack of money, which provides a lack of time. So if you are a choreographer, you don't have the time to take well care on your dancers because you have a limited amount. You have only 6 weeks to shoot out a production. And if you want to train according to the scientific rules of sports medicine, you would not train 8 hours a day the way we do, or you would not always create new stuff. Even though nowadays there is more understanding of functional work-wise, nevertheless, we always go too far. So the body is lacking rest, the body is lacking base condition because we are not training it. So we are not training stamina in a way like, or at least it's not part of the university, and it's also not part of the professional training. You always go, you do an exercise and you stop, you do an exercise and you stop. So actually what you're doing, you're always specifically trying to get technical wise better, but you're missing the base. And that's the biggest problem, because on top of that, your body has nothing where it can recover. So whenever you have a small injury or a small irritation, it starts to get a big problem, which would not happen if you have like the stamina training, because that's where the body can get kind of the resources. So to say it in one sentence, the problem is that we are lacking the knowledge or the usage of the knowledge of scientific research and also the scientific training stuff, and we're not using it, and that's why we have so many different small injuries. And dancers tend to also go always over. They say, yeah, pain is normal, and then so they continue.
Yes, and also to add to this is that it's not only the scientific knowledge behind how to build the stamina and how to prevent injuries, but also the body chemistry of our bodies, and also nutrition knowledge. So it's all under dance science, and I only had or with Jirce, we only had a little bit of this education actually about dance science with Andreas, but already this 1 year was incredibly helpful. So I think it's a complex subject of nutrition and body chemistry and all the scientific base for prevention.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I agree. And the thing is also with if you talk about a conventional sport, you always train the same movements just to get better within the movements, and we always learn new movements and of course try to make it better, but we never have the like if you have a normal sports person, it starts to work on stamina and always exercises until it comes to a competition line, and then there is the time for a slowdown. And we are always like this. We go up and then up and go up and go up, and then we have a breakdown. And with all the different, you have also what you also mentioned later on, the mental part. So there's this triad of health, which is the mental, the physical, and the biochemistry. Those three we have to be aware of, that they interlink. And in the dance world, in dance science, yes, it starts to happen, but by far not really satisfying.
Yeah, and connecting to this, or to continue this thread, what do you think, what is the best way to build up stamina for a dancer? Which are those sports or exercises which are the best in your experience? And then afterwards, I would ask all of you what your experience was so far with this.
Basically, it's very individual, but I suggest either running or swimming. Those are the two major options that you have, because also maybe cycling, but cycling, the posture is very bad for the cycling, that you really go into the stamina. And running and swimming, you have a smaller amount of time to be able to build up the stamina in comparison to cycling. Running, though, is very harsh on your ligaments and very harsh on your joints. So basically swimming would be a very good option.
Jirce?
I also agree that it's very individual, but what I'm trying to establish now is running, but I really like to run in the nature, so I don't have the hard floor, the concrete floor. So I'm really trying to go into the woods where it's also a bit uphill, because swimming pools right now are closed. So this is it. And I sometimes get into this panic mode, which is, I think, the worst before the performances. Like, and now I need to get into extra good shape, and it's already way too late. It has to be consistent and going on all the time, I think. So yeah, for me it's running that I'm trying, to establish.
Sarah, also because you teach Pilates, so.
Yeah, well, when I was dancing professionally, we always worked, our season was 10 months. So basically we would start from September and then finish before the summer. And so there was 2 months where we had no dancing. I would often go home to see the family, but we had to stay fit because our schedule with 8 hours a day, 6 days a week was basically starting immediately. So therefore we had to kind of maintain our fitness. And what I used to do was Pilates, just to keep the strength of the muscles. I always found, I used to do the reformer, the actual machine reformer Pilates. And I found that this was the best way to substitute the ballet classes that I was not receiving every day. So therefore I would do Pilates 5 days a week. In that range of 2 months. And then on top of that, every day, I was never a jogger. I hated the feeling it gave to my knees, my ankles. And so I used to power walk. I used to try and do 6 to 7 kilometers of power walking a day. So that's when I was, let's say, fit and a professional dancer. And this helped. This is what helped me. Of course, I was stretching in between all that as well. And I found that getting back into the dancing in the company, I would have 2 weeks of absolute pain. It was, and I felt that the older I got, the worse it got. And even though I was still maintaining my fitness levels to a certain degree, it's just not the same to 8 hours of exercise a day. Now, as a teacher, mother, middle-aged woman, I still continue with my Pilates, but mat work and my power walks. And I don't need to have that, like, I don't need to be fit like you anymore because I'm not performing on the stage. I'm not challenged with choreographies anymore. So it's not really a priority now for me.
Thank you. And Jula, especially because you were working with companies and now you are on your own freelancing, and I guess it's a rather difficult situation for all freelancers to keep in shape and to build up a routine, how you can keep your stamina and keep in shape. So just a few words about your experience.
While listening to all of you, I've been, sort of searching through all my memories in different periods of my life, being engaged in a variety of ways, being a dancer. And so the first thought that came to my mind, I started off as a traditional dancer, a folk dancer, before I went to contemporary. And I had to laugh at myself because we would have a concrete floor dance studio, and the whole mentality, the approach was pretty much like coming back from a summer vacation and the teacher would tell us, go. And then you had to be 100%. And it was painful for 2 weeks, as Sarah said something similar a moment ago. But then, how to say, like this sort of, in that world, I never met even the idea of trying to take care of yourself, like nobody was concerned with the thought of stamina or prevention or whatever. So the very first moment that I came across the possibility of training myself with an awareness about my own body came along with entering the world of contemporary dance. When all of a sudden people explained to me, yeah, you should pay attention to the position of your knees when you are bending them, or things such as that. And then to jump a couple of years to the present moment, I found that this quarantine in the springtime was very helpful to me, because all of a sudden I was forced to invent my strategies, in my own living room, to do something about stopping the rapid radical gaining of weight and the expansion of my little belly. And also when one morning I realized I'm breathing heavily while panting, while trying to fix my shoelaces, I thought, okay, it's time to do something about it. And luckily, Franklin method came back to my life in that very moment. Somehow we used to have Franklin method as part of our training in Slovenia at the company called Enknap. But then since then, in the past years, I was never really concerned with Franklin, and then it all of a sudden came back to me. So I started exploring his ideas, which I find very beautiful and very helpful, and I find them to be very appropriate for dancers. You know, Eric also being a dancer originally before he started to explore the fascia and anatomy and all the imagery that he's doing. And there was something else in my mind. Yeah, and then I practically started doing my own research with the help of internet to find possibilities of a variety of trainings or training programs I could do in a small space without the ability to go to the swimming pool. And I'm also not a huge jogger, so even though I have a wonderful running course near my apartment, you know, with this soft, spongy track, but I'll be honest, I hate running, so it's very hard to convince myself to go there. And so at the moment, I would do a variety of training that takes up an hour and a half, 3 times a week, which is like, you know, for the well-being of my body. And then eventually, whenever I could do more specific things, preferably in a studio, then of course I would go for that chance. So long story short, I miss dancing, I think. And in a way, I think a good 1.5 to 2 hours of dancing is probably the best way to keep in shape as a dancer. What I understand nowadays of our, how do you say that, neural system, you know, like the nerves of our body and the whole brain, body-mind connection. What I understand is even though I would run and do other specific training for health reasons, it has a very different impact on my nervous system than dancing itself. So from that perspective, I think the two things should somehow, in an ideal world, should go hand in hand.
Thank you. It's really good that you mentioned the fascia and Franklin method, and I will ask later on Johannes about this, because yes, also at the university we learned a lot about it, and I also had some injuries, and since that I learned even more about it. But before that, not that I want to talk about something so joyful, but I guess all of you had a moment in your life and in your career when your body just said, stop, like it's enough, we have to stop and do something with it because something is wrong in the system. So I guess you all had such a moment. If not, it's great, but if yes, please tell me about this a little bit. Maybe let's start now with Sarah.
I found that, I guess, mentally, or as I was getting older and dancing professionally, I found that my priorities were slowly changing. So I remember when I was in my early 20s, I would be, even though our classes would begin at 10 o'clock in the morning at the theatre, I would be there an hour and 15 minutes earlier, and I'd do a full program of Pilates before I even went into my 8-hour day of work. By the time I got to about 29, I would run in the last 10 minutes before the company class actually started, not warm and much older. And so like there was such a shift of where my priorities were going. And I also remember the older I got, I would be doing a plie at the bar and I'd be thinking, oh, do I really have to? Like, why am I doing this now? All these things were really going through my mind. And so this was more mentally for me. Having said that, I also had met my husband at the time. We weren't engaged, we were just dating at the time. So, you know, slowly everything was changing. So for me, that was probably a sign that I had to slow down, maybe look for another avenue. Or obviously I've always related my careers to dance anyway. The passion has always been there. Physically though, the most interesting thing, I had injuries throughout my career, but not one injury really made me stop or say, slow down, stop. I was one of those typical dancers that just kept on going. I think the only thing that stopped me once was a plaster cast on my ankle when I broke my small metatarsal. But that was the only thing that really made me stop. Otherwise, I just danced with pain, despite what was happening to my actual body at the time. Although when I stopped dancing, about a year after I stopped dancing, I was still physical every day, but not that 8 hours a day. And I ended up developing a lot of pain in my ankle, and yet I was not dancing 8 hours a day. So my muscles were weakening. They weren't supporting the joints the way they probably were when I was really active and fit. And then I discovered that I had a tumor growing locally in my ankle, and it's a sickness that occurs 1 in 1 million. So it's not a normal sickness or disease. They call it a disease, and it's an aggressive tumor that constantly grows back. And I would have had this tumor in my ankle while I was dancing, and yet I was just programmed. I was just programmed that dance. Got to, you got to work with that choreographer. Despite what I do or how much pain I'm in, I have to dance. But that's just how I am. I'm driven. And so this was really interesting for me. And so now I've stopped dancing now for about 15 years. I haven't danced on the stage. And since my career, I've had 4 operations on that same ankle because this tumor is reoccurring. And for me, I'm so grateful that it was not this injury that made me stop my dancing. I'm glad it was my priorities, let's say my life priorities of what I wanted as a person, as a adult. That's what made me stop dancing and not my injury. And I think this would have been really hard for me if it was an injury. I don't know why I say that, but this is just how I feel, that I'm glad it came after my career.
Thank you for your story. Jirce, would you continue?
Now I was thinking when you were talking, Sarah, if I had any major injuries, but I really think I didn't. I had problems with my knees that I think were very connected to my emotional unbalances throughout life that sometimes occurred. And then, but I think all the injuries are actually also a great opportunity to relearn about the body and reshape it, because I had a lot of wrong training from jazz ballet and tap and all the show and huge quadriceps and all that shit. So yeah, was good. But then I think 2 years ago I was traveling a lot and couch surfing a lot, and we were moving a lot, and then I had a bit of a trouble sleeping and back pain. But I think it was really because of this constant moving, never really sleeping good, always being on the road. So I'm also happy that it kind of stopped, and then now I'm more based in Slovenia, so I also see the improvement in this. And I think the broken little toe that you also know about, Esther, and me traveling with it to Ukraine was really a high peak of, okay, that's really enough. If I'm in pain, I'm totally not dancing and I'm not pushing my body through the limits. So
Jirce, tell us how many times you broke your toe, because I think it was not once.
No, it was this one time, but it was broken in 2 different parts, and then I pushed it, and it had to heal like for 3 months because I danced with it. Like we went to Ukraine, and then we danced bluing with Klepa and Enya on Tanzhafen Festival, and I did the showing of Sisi and the final performance of Bruckner Uni with Damian. So it really wasn't good, and it wasn't healing until I got really afraid that it will never heal, because I was with a swollen foot for about like 2 months. So it was a very good experience to really say, okay, I love dancing and it's beautiful and it's really worth being on stage, but not on the cost of my own body. That's quite immature already. Have to take care of yourself first.
Yes, of course. And it's also this constant frustration you had through these months because of this little but painful thing. So
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah. Jula, did you have anything like this, or you experienced some major injuries that changed your way of training dancing, or something that made you stop for a moment to rest?
Yes, I experienced a variety of injuries throughout my career up until now. I can't recall a moment when any of those would really make me stop. I would rather, squeeze my teeth together and keep jumping with a broken ligament and so on. However, what I thought to point out was that now I already began to discover this, and now looking back, it is just an even stronger realization how most of my injuries occurred in circumstances when mentally I was not in a good place. And that affected my emotions, and then eventually I ended up, getting some consequence that shows on the physical level. So if I approach your question, or if I approach answering your question from this perspective, I would say what I've been actually consciously working on for the past few years was to change my customs and habits about my own mental health, and to develop new strategies. So a small thing is that now every morning I wake up, I dedicate 5 minutes to do some sort of focusing, and let's call it a meditation. And it's a small step, but I find it comforting and useful for myself.
Johannes? We don't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I had actually 2 moments. The first was in Rotterdam, and the second was at Landestheater. And I completely agree with you guys. I think it's basically most of the time always an emotional, mental cause, and your higher self or whatever decides to stop. I really deeply believe in that. So because when I think back on when I was in Rotterdam, basically I had a moment. For me, Rotterdam was like the Olymp at that time. It was the only contemporary dance school in Europe, and I got in, and then I got a contract with Rosas, and then I was like, okay, now after 1 year of training, I got the contract, and I started to question myself. Okay, I know I can do Rosas, but what's going to happen afterwards? Like if I do Rosas all the time, so am I wanting? So I started to doubt my decision in dance. And that's the moment when my first injury came. Then coming back to physiotherapy, and then I went back to dancing. And then I was in Linz with the choreographer Robert Poole, and it was physically way too much. And I ripped my anterior cruciate ligament apart on stage in a performance. And I will always remember this moment. It made a snack, and I was lying on stage. And my first thought was, I know why it happened. Because I didn't dare to decide to stop. And I was in a similar situation, like Sarah said. For me, I had those two worlds in my brain that I had to divide: the knowledge from physiotherapy, and then doing on stage completely the opposite, what I know is actually healthy for my body. I have to go way beyond my borders physically. And in general, I think that's a big problem in dance, because we need to go beyond our borders in order to make it as a professional world. This is what in our system somehow, at least in our generation, Sarah. I think in the newer, probably it's a little different. I had enough of killing my body 8 hours a day, and also, to be honest, not earning a decent money. I was 31 at the time. I wanted to live with my, at that time, not wife yet, but my girlfriend, with Randy. We wanted to think about a family, and like, okay, the dance world is definitely not ours. And also, which was a special situation with Robert Poole. It was like a very scary situation. Like, it was very unpleasant, the whole situation. But coming back to what Gyula said, and also Sarah, I think it's really the emotional is the key. And I see this also in students. Students tend to have problems when they are in a down, when they doubt themselves. In that moment, they start to have problems. When there is something unpleasant. And it's just like emotions, and it's the word emotions, out of the motion it's coming. So it's so connected, yeah. And I deeply believe in this. The emotion make you stop, and they show you through the body. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would also add my little story, just because it's quite recent. And I also have another thought besides all of what you said, that we dancers, we talk so much about body awareness, self-awareness, however we want to call it. But I think in some cases, something has to happen to really realize how your body works. At least this was the way with me, because after I got accepted at the university, I always listened to words like, your body is really like perfect for a dancer, and to be a dancer, and it's you're so long, you're so lucky, it's so nice. And somehow it was in my brain that it's a perfect body, it's really made for dancing. And then I had an injury at the end of my 3rd year with my spine, with my lower back. And at that point, I really felt from one day to another that I'm kind of like a disabled person. It's from being the perfect body girl, I went to not feeling like a human anymore. And yeah, it was a big shock, also emotionally and in every ways. And years later, now in January, this injury came back, but in a more severe way. And it was the same 2 vertebrae, or the discs between the same vertebrae, and they started to push some nerves which radiated to my left leg. And so I couldn't use the muscles of my left leg. Everything went numb. I couldn't step on a stair. And yeah, it took some weeks till I was able to even walk. And then I started physiotherapy. And now I'm back to dancing, luckily. I didn't need an injury, but I was on the border. Like, I think 3 out of 4 doctors said that I will need a surgery, and in case I feel numbness on other parts, they would put me under the knives in 24 hours, because yeah, then it can happen that I get paralyzed. So yeah, it was a big shock. All I want to say with this is that this body awareness has so many levels, and it's so important to understand our own bodies and how it works, and what are those weaknesses which we might not discover for many years. And so I would jump now to treatment. Yes, of course.
Just a short thought about body awareness. Yes, we do it, but if we are honest, we use it for creation. We use it for getting a different kind of style, different kind of quality. Even though the focus should be on being more aware of how you do to be more healthy, we do the body awareness to get a certain kind of quality. And that's, for me, I just realized it right now when you said that. I'm like, yeah, we do a lot of body awareness, but basically why? Because we want to get the people somewhere, how they move, in a way, talking from this side, which is completely bonkers. Yeah.
Yes, and also that if I'm honest with myself, I lied to myself many times, because I felt pain, I felt blocks, I felt that something is not good, for example, in my lower back. And at the same time, I really enjoyed that I can do whatever with my body. So I pushed through the pain, and I thought, okay, this is normal. This is how it's supposed to be. This is coming with dancing, and yeah, I survived. So, but after one point, the body says, no, it's not okay. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe, Johannes, you could even continue with treatments, and what's the good thing to do if you have an injury. There are so many ways to treat yourself, and there are so many bad ways to treat yourself. And even when I had the first time this injury with my spine, yeah, I had stiff glutes. I have many things which caused this deformation, and I was so ambivalent what to do. Should I put warm on it? Should I put cold on it? Should I go run to doctors and check out everything? Should I go to a physio person? So yes, I think sometimes it's in the panic, it's a big confusion.
Yeah, but this is an answer I cannot really give, because it's
so individual.
It's so individual, yes, and it depends where you are, what kind of environmental options you've got. Like, talking in general, I would always look for someone who tries to find out the real cause of your problem. Because I tell you that you all know that 90% of all the doctors, they see the pain, they kill the pain, they say you have a ruptured disc, now you have to go and do some surgery, or you do some abdominal movements because some muscles are weak, which is with the dancers never the case in general. So just as a personal experience, I experienced the best help, acute help, in actually acupuncture massage, all this kind of holistic ideas or holistic methods that they do. I tell you why, because they do one thing. They kind of make a tension balance. They see where there is too much, which there's the pain. And if you have too much of a tension somewhere, there's always in another part of your body, there is also tension lacking. So they take it away and put it where it's lacking. So it's a balancing system or a healing mode that initiates a self-healing balance, and it reorganizes. And then on top of that, so this was always my first attempt. When I had injuries, I went to someone who did acupuncture massage. It's not with the needles, but it's with the pen. And still nowadays I go there because it helps me a lot. And then exercising, I think, is step number 3. And talking about ice and all this stuff, there are kind of rules. The first 48 to 72 hours, if you have an acute injury, you should put ice. So in order to stop the swelling and the bleeding, later on you should put some warm stuff on that. But still, this is very individual. For example, if people have a stiff neck, ice could help, but also the hot cream could help. It's very, very difficult. And I think the most important thing as a dancer, wherever you go, you find a person that you trust, that he or she has a knowledge about dance, first of all, because this is the biggest problem. They say, yeah, stop moving for 6 weeks, or all these stupid things that we all heard, but they don't understand what dancing is. And they say, yeah, but you're hyperflexible, of course you have problems. All the things that we are kind of having problems with. So it's individual, yes. I would always look for someone who tries to balance the whole system, which it can also be shiatsu or any kind of, or there are, I'm sure, other methods. And before I go to an orthopedic doctor, I definitely would go to an osteopath. Yeah, the doctor is like, you need a doctor to get a diagnosis, and like, here in Austria with all the insurance to get it covered. But a doctor is most of the time not specialized in the dance needs, and most of the times not the one who cures without too much vaccinations and stuff.
Yes, and just a question, because you mentioned balancing out the tension and the lack of tension. So the fascia treatment does actually the same idea, just in a different way, no?
Yes, but you also have to differentiate. There are so many different ways of treating the fascias. There is one that is really going really physically very harsh on it, like you manually work out the fascias, which is super painful. And then there's rolfing, and then there's also the craniosacral therapy, basically is also working with fascias. But I think I would decide to do fascias as step 2, because there is a reason why the fascias are in disharmony, and we have to find out why. If you reorganize the fascias, but you didn't find out what was the reason for it, it will come back as well. Not talking about an acute problem, but in general. Fascial work is great, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah, thank you. And just a little note, because I made my research and I read something like rice treatment, which I didn't know what this is, but it's just a shortened rice, rest,
like rice.
Rest, ice, compression, and elevation.
Elevation, yes. Okay, yeah.
It's just a nice phrase to remember. Following this thread, maybe I would ask you about how you rejuvenate your body, how you treat your body when it feels discomfort, and just a general recovery method that you follow. Jirca, please.
With me, like this year, I got employed at the high school, which means I have a very stable income, which means whenever I feel pain, I go to the osteopath in Ljubljana that I found, and we really clicked, and I really trust him immediately when I feel pain or discomfort. When I was just freelancing, the money would often be an issue, so I would prolongate the pain, try to treat it myself way longer than I do now. So now I feel pain and I'm like, I need to arrange an appointment immediately. But other than that, I love to go to sauna just as a relaxation thing. And I do a lot of black rolling on my own, and also different types of massage. But right now, like, I kind of entered this process of really working on my spine with the osteopath that I found in Ljubljana. So we are really kind of working on that regularly now. But it really changed with this financial security, I have to say, which is kind of a bit crazy, maybe, but it really made a shift. So now I go immediately.
Good for you, girl. Gyula, please, about your easy self-treatments, and also, of course, include your mental self-treatments if you feel like, but we will go to these topics later on still.
In fact, I think there are a number of ways I would, treat myself in a, how did you put it, in a good way, in a positive way?
I said easy self-treatment, but
yeah, it's very lovely how you put it. Easy self-treatment. I was looking for that construct of words. So on the short term, whenever I feel that I need to go for the easy self-treatment, there's the dog and there's the woods. And I find it to be a quite nice combination to air my head, or even if I'm not running, but get a good contralateral walking for 20, 30, 40 minutes. That could do a lot of the job. Then I'm lucky in a number of ways, living in Budapest, also known as the world capital of spas. Whenever it is not a COVID-19 situation, I could treat myself with a good old Turkish bath, or the other spas with their facilities. Plus, my uncle who lives across the street, he's kind of a physio specialized in disc hernia treatment mainly, but then through that his experience is quite widespread. So if it's something more like, for example, if it's an injury and I need immediate help before I could get somewhere for a specific diagnose, I would usually call him and ask him, like, what should I do right now? And then later on, I go for the complexity of solving the problem, or at least trying to solve the problem.
thank you. I don't know, Sarah, you have to continue.
I find it difficult to find the time to self-treat. I find that, well, especially this year, because I've been also a homeschool teacher to my own children, which means I've had basically no time to myself at all this year. It's just been constant. If I had time, I would always go for a massage. I love, that's something I need. We have a pretty cool massage machine at home now that I find really functions well. So I actually just use this machine. I can move it around. I can massage my hamstrings or whatever I need. So this is my savior at the moment, and a sauna. I'm lucky to have one at home, so I can also have a sauna in the evening. These two things, and like Gyula, I love to go for a walk with the dog. This I do every day, and this is just probably the best start to my day after I've taken the kids to school. If they actually are allowed to go to school, then I can really enjoy my walk with the dog. But they're probably the main things that I do for self-help, treating.
Super. And Johannes, please, also with 2 kids, homeschooling, I know.
Basically, when you treat others, you don't get treatments yourself, to be really honest. I hardly ever go, even though I feel the need right now, but it's also, it's really due to COVID that it's getting really worse, because the people that I tend to go, they're not allowed to work. And also financially with me, it's a financial problem, that 70% of my income broke away due to COVID. And so I had to work more in the practice and so on. But yeah, for me, It was when I was dancing still, I tried to have a regular treatment in acupuncture massage every 2 weeks. And the best is if you go to treatments when you feel great, so that you keep feeling great, and they kind of erase small disbalances. But right now, I think the last treatment that I got is, I don't know, was January, February or something. Since then, I didn't go to, no, that's not true. That's not true. I had a treatment with my colleague because I couldn't move my neck, but it was an emergency treatment, see? Yeah. But that's one thing, sorry, that's one thing that is very important. What Jerza said, it always ends up with the money. That's the biggest problem. I mean, it's cool if you know, or if you have an uncle like Eula, it's great. But if you're somewhere just having enough money to survive, and then you cannot. And seeing the professional sports people that I worked with, you know, for example, the ice hockey people, they get a massage every fucking day. You know, it's like, oh my God, they have a spa, they get everything. And they train a lot. They really train a lot. Like they're so super machines, but they get everything.
Can I add something there? When I was working in the theatre in Graz, we had an in-house physiotherapist. He was actually was a dancer in the company, and then became a physiotherapist. And he was also into alternative medicine, a lot of Chinese medicine. So he was amazing there every day. So we had really good treatment in Graz. And but then in Linz, we had nobody. There was nothing. And also, like what Johannes, what you mentioned, you know, the dancer's wage is it's terrible. And I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but it was when I was dancing, and I couldn't afford to go to a physiotherapist, and I just couldn't do it. And I remember we were always questioning the what do you call it, the Betriebsrat, the union, the dance union of the theatre, saying we need a weekly person to come in and give us a massage or to work on us. We can't afford to go to a private physiotherapist. It was, so we all basically worked through our injuries without a physiotherapist. I remember I had a sore knee, and Johannes, you actually came to watch a performance that evening. We had a premiere, and you came in to say hello to the new dancers, and you quickly looked at my knee in the dressing room before I went on stage. I don't know if you remember that, but
I don't know, to be honest. I don't.
No, I do. But it was just, it is a question of finance, and these professional football players or hockey players, they just have it every day, and yet the dancers don't.
Yeah, I think some lucky companies have their own massage therapists or physiotherapists. I think now in Linz, or at least when I was working there, they had the massage once a week or something like this. But this was like Swedish massage, like nothing specific.
Which could also be beneficial, though. You know, as soon as because you start the detoxification, which is always.
And also what you said, I think it's a key sentence in this topic, that we should treat ourselves when we feel fine, when we feel good, and not when there is already a trouble in the body. So I think it's a key idea. And one more thing that doesn't really fit to this specifically, but I remember, Johannes, once you told me about like 21st century injuries with kids playing the computer games and stuff like this. Can you say just a few examples, because they were so funny, and I want to remember them.
The first thing was the Game Boy thumb, because when they started to have the Game Boy, it was an inflammation in the joint due to doing this all the time. So this was the first thing. Then the second thing was they got an inflammation in the wrist because of the swishing. So they called it the swoosh inflammation, and it's really hilarious that this is the topic. That's what it's called, swoosh inflammation. And then now it's just the cervical spine. It's this, yeah. So the problem is that you see now with I have 7-year-old kids with a hump here because the cervicals are just kind of sliding forward, having severe head pain. Yeah, I think that's all that I remember. Yeah.
Thanks. This was just a little comment. And let's get into the mental health topic. I think we will not go through everything, and I think we will not go into the research method topics. I'm sorry, Irte and Sarah, I know you wanted rather this topic, but next time. Maybe Gyula, you should start about your experience at companies or at NCNAP. How was the communication? How did you feel about general mental health of the dancers and their well-being mentally? It's nothing to, I'm not asking this to say anything bad about any companies or any dancers, choreographers, just as an experience, how you felt about this.
I spent approximately 4 years with that company, and the way I remember was very tough from this perspective that you are asking. At least that was my experience. Like for me, it was very difficult emotionally, mentally, to sustain myself within the company. Oftentimes, not always, not every day, but a general sentiment was this challenging one, you know. And to be honest, I can't really name now one place where I wouldn't encounter that in some way, in some level, in my 15 years long career now. Maybe there's just, you know, the specific places I got into with, no, I actually realized that I'm not fully true, that I'm not saying the full truth. There was one project with a younger choreographer that I used to do a couple of years back, and that was, you know, like a revelation in that sense, because all of a sudden I encountered a choreographer who would be kind and understanding and accepting, and yet, you know, he was demanding from the perspective of the work that we were doing. So it's not like we were allowed to do whatever we wanted and it would be holidays every day. It's not that at all. Yet I think he had a good level of empathy, and he knew how to use that. And so all of a sudden I realized, okay, the ways I knew of are not the only way how our job could be done, how work could be done. I'm not really sure what else could I add to that.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, just to specify that you said some sort of sentimentalism was in you, and it's not because you are feeling homesick or alone, but you mean from the daily impact of being in a company and getting orders basically, or can you maybe specify what made you feel, I don't know, mentally exhausted or stressed?
One of the things was having to work 8 hours a day because that was in my contract. We were, in that sense, we were forced to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, not because there was work to be done, but because we were employed to work 40 hours a day. And I've seen that mentality in other places as well, not only in steady companies, but in, you know, projects in other countries with other choreographers. Switzerland is very strict in that sense. For example, I've been working a lot in Switzerland in the past 7 years with more than one choreographer, and every single time is this mentality: you are employed to work 8 hours a day, and then, you know, we end up pretending for 4 that we are doing something, and that, to me, that's very exhausting. I like to be efficient. I like to. I'm sure that most probably are all aware of Burroughs' book called The Choreographer's Handbook, and a recurring sentence in that book, what I love a lot, is, "Don't worry, it's just a stupid dance." And that's very relieving to me in a way, you know. And then I remember this chapter in his book where he explains that most of his work he would do in his kitchen while cooking, and then he goes to the studio to sort of check out whether his ideas are going to work in space as well or not. But he's not working in the studio in his understanding. And to me, there's a key element there somehow. Like in my ideal, the way I imagine an ideal, working environment within our profession would be something like that: to take a couple of hours to prepare what we want to do, and then go to the studio and do it in 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever is needed, 4 hours. If there are that many things to do, let's use 4 hours, of course. But let's not spend each other's time in the studio just trying to come up with what we actually want to do, or, you know, etc., etc. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Johannes, would you please continue with this idea, and also to maybe explain a little bit further that having discipline and working hard and being respectful to a choreographer is not equal to being a robot and losing our creativity?
I think the biggest problem here is trust. This always happens if there is no trust involved from the choreographer's side. It can also be from the dancer's side, but most of the time. I had exactly the same experience, and I was like, why do choreographers always have to be assholes? I really had the feeling like when they got stressed, they all like shuffled it on us, and we were super exhausted, and they demanded more and more, and they saw that we were dead, but no, not enough, which I understand, it's their stress. And it's so difficult, but at the end of the day, it comes always back to the same thing. It's the money, because within the very short time you have to produce, it has to be good. Otherwise, you're not funded anymore next time. And so this is again the thing. But I don't want to blame only the money, because it's a decision how you treat your dancers. And I think the few things that I had been choreographing or also working with the AZB, so it's I found it so relieving that we went to the studio and we were efficient, and then we stopped earlier and was like, wait, no, today doesn't work. I have no mind. I cannot produce or whatever. And the whole atmosphere for me was with especially with the AZB, it was like, this is a dream, how it should really happen, at least from my side. I don't know how she experienced it, but it was really the way it should be, because my worst experience was at the theater in Linz with Robert Poole. He was like creating an atmosphere where people felt physically in danger, really, with him. And of course, this shouldn't be. If you have an atmosphere of trust, which I always come back to the same word, you need to trust each other, and then you can be exactly what you said. You can work efficient, and you can create something in 2 hours, and not necessarily with yeah, I know the feeling. When I was in Spain, we had the same. We were from 9 o'clock until 7 o'clock, so we had 12 hours, and we were pretending to do as if, you know, just to cut the hours, which is a nightmare. But yeah, now I got lost with what your question was actually.
It's okay. I think you answered. And also, I must say that I never worked with you, Johannes, one by one, but we made a choreography in a class, and I remember that we were in the other building in above Villa, and you went downstairs to Villa before our rehearsal, and you bought a bunch of chocolate and fruits, and you said in every little break a group had, you said, you have to eat. And then immediately when something was out, you bought it again. And even just this little gesture made such a nice atmosphere, and so important to bring a good atmosphere, principally. And yeah, Jirta, you could continue because of this work together with Johannes. And also, if you had some dramatic experience, maybe you can share. Not with Johannes, but with anyone.
No, with Johannes, we really, I think it's also something that it was a solo. So, and what he comes back to the trust, that we could really say how we feel. Like if I was tired, I could just be like, I'm tired, I'm brain dead, and we would stop. Because also in Slovenia, I feel like there is a lot of this, you have to work your hours. And I remember working with Leon, being in the studio, feeling very down and depressed, because we were like, okay, 2 more hours to go, feeling this guilt that you're not working when you are supposed to work. It's just a very bad roller coaster, I feel. So yeah, with Johannes was really great because we were very efficient. We prepared the rehearsals, and then it was really cool to work also from my side. I actually so far didn't have any bad experiences until now, when I'm working with an older male choreographer and he's picking on me. So if you have any suggestions how to deal with that, I would be very happy, because he's picking on the good stuff. I think he was very traumatized from working with specific group of dancers from Slovenia that are late on rehearsals or not showing up or something like this. So he's picking on me for being there early and warming up in silence. He's picking on me because I have nice training pants. He would be picking on me because I remember the material and write things down. And he wants to say it as a joke, but it's very annoying because we are in a bigger group, and I tried to ignore it. Now I'm on the point where I'm talking back, which I find very stupid, because then I go on the same level as he is. But I'm just like, I don't get why you're picking on me, because yeah, I think maybe he's shocked that we are such a working group, like we all come on time and we work. But it's first time actually. Oh, also this was a very weird situation. But I think like the situation with Vienna was that the choreographer was really not secure in herself, so she would put it on us, and the stress she had with creating the piece, we were her filter. And also the group didn't trust her work. So you could really see that there was this balance in this work together. But right now, it's the first time that I'm actually facing this uncomfortable rehearsals that I'm actually not looking forward to. So it's the deal that I'm dealing with now.
Have you tried asking this older man why is he so picky with you, or why you're getting all these comments, or is he your boss in this case?
He's my boss because he's the choreographer and he owns the place. So he's my boss. But I ask him like, why is it wrong to be on time? Why is it wrong to be dressed nicely and smell good on rehearsals? Because I really like that. I need that. And like, yeah, but he would just say, he's just a joke, you know, to make the atmosphere better on my account, which it's not making the atmosphere better, at least not for me. So yeah, maybe Sarah, like, or Esther, like, especially coming from the point of a female to a male, a younger female to a male. Also, he always speaks on small brown hair girls. It's kind of his habit, and it just happens that I'm this kind of profile now. So yeah, I don't know. If you have some suggestions, I'm very open.
I actually have difficulties rather with female choreographers, or so far this was my experience. So I never really had with an older male any like bigger conflict. But yeah, I would say in general, I mean, sometimes it's my bad, and it's maybe I'm not getting enough jobs because of this. But I rather say out loud everything all the time, of course, in a respectful way. But I just feel like a better person like that, and I feel it's a better thing to speak out and set things clearly and be able to be partners with the choreographer. I like, so far the problems I had actually with one choreographer, it was because she was not treating me as a partner. She was treating me like a schoolish person doing her things. And because it was a specific situation where she was working with me, I felt like it should be an equal partnership. And of course, there is a more experienced person who is respected there, and it doesn't mean that we lose the roles of a choreographer and dancer, but sometimes this is what I miss. This way of treating each other both as professionals and as equal parts of a production or a creation process. Yeah, sorry, Jirta, I don't have anything specifically for older men how to deal with them. Maybe Sarah.
I could be here all night telling you the stories that I went through, but we won't, don't worry. But yeah, Sarah, I think you should approach him. I probably wouldn't have. When I was a dancer, I probably would have just swallowed it and just dealt with it. But that would have been probably the age I was. But me now, I would just go, I mean, you need to be comfortable in the environment you work in. And if you want to be the best dancer you are, and he would want you to be the best dancer for his choreography. So therefore you need a balance. And he's obviously very open, sounds like he's very sarcastic, and this is his sense of humor, which is not really funny at all. But I think you need to approach him and maybe but approach it in a very diplomatic way, where you're like, oh, you know, I really want to be productive in the rehearsals, and I want to, I mean, if you're working a lot on improvisation and creative processes, then you also need to be switched on. And if your mind is somewhere else because you're worried about the perfume you're wearing, or the jogging pants because he's always picking on you or singling out, it sounds like he singles you out. And if he's doing that, then you're not completely focused on the tasks that you're given or the work that you're doing. I think maybe very diplomatically, kindly approach him. Or you go the completely opposite way and wear bright colors, bad perfume, and just annoy the hell out of him. Give him a reason to single you out. Make it more obvious, and then maybe he will stop. I don't know.
I don't know him that good yet that I would know what works better, but I think maybe once after the rehearsal, I might just stay and just say to him that I don't think it's necessary.
No, it's not necessary. I mean, you want to enjoy the experience and be the best dancer that you can be during this time, not being afraid. I had a director once here in Austria, not in Linz though, and this director based basically their methods on fear, scaring us. I was so young and so driven, I kind of just turned a blind eye to it. But if I look back at it now, I think, oh my God, I don't know, that we used to get called names, would be like serious name calling, but not nice names, names with swear words and you name it. We were called all these horrible names. And then this director would work on putting the dancers against each other. So they really, I don't know. I don't know how this director did
like a structured way of bullying, like building up bullying.
So, like, she wasn't the bully, but she was a bit of a bully, this director, but like she tried to have all the other, I don't know, the dancers against each other. I think she loved drama, this director. And yeah, trust, like what Johanna said, you just, if you don't get that trust from the director or the choreographer, then, you know, it's just, the atmosphere is just not going to work. I believe now as a teacher on creating a balanced, healthy climate within the dance studio. And if I can have some sort of respect and trust from my students, I hope that it's the opposite direction, that we work together with this respect and this trust. And a healthy climate is so important. And I know I never worked well with fear or yelling or name calling. So it's very old fashioned, really.
Thank you. Yeah, Johannes?
Yeah, I'm just want to throw a thought, because maybe it's our old generation in a way, because somehow it was always like, yeah, you have to be thankful that you have the job because there are hundreds waiting outside. You know, this mass production always in heads, and so the fear probably worked also due to that. And I think right now, maybe guys, since you're in the field, is wrong, but I think that individuality is much more important right now, and they choose you not due to your technical versatility, but because they want to have you as a character in contemporary dance. Maybe this is my thought that how it would be in a dream world, but I have the feeling it's more they're looking more for personalities and less for, you know, doing all this Olympic game stuff. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm just swiping like crazy. I'm such a loser still with this Zoom. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and thank you for all your comments. Towards the end, I will go into some cliche topics, but they are cliche because they are also relevant now. So I would ask if any of you had some experience which felt like a sexual assault or anything sexual. Yula? No? No, I'm just asking because I haven't seen your face. I needed to swipe.
Yes, I'm here. It's hard to say in a way, I think. I do remember one specific person I've been working with where I always felt that maybe something is a little off. And, you know, that was never really, like, I can't call it sexual harassment, but certain gestures of his felt rather discomforting to me. So it's a bit hard and delicate to say whether, you know, it was that sort of oppression that came from his sexual desire or not. I'm not sure. But I felt uncomfortable time to time by his actions or by his gestures. Like, he would have this specific way of greeting other male dancers by catching onto their neck and sort of just holding you like that while giving a kiss on your cheek. And he comes from a culture where it is very common that men kiss each other on the cheek. So it's that part of Europe where this is super normal, and I never felt uncomfortable doing that with other, for example, my male colleagues. I never felt uncomfortable doing that, even though it's not part of my culture, but I got used to the fact that, in theirs, that's part of it. Whereas with this particular choreographer, it always felt a bit strange. And I think it's most probably due to this specific neck hold that felt, as if I was, how would you say that? It felt a bit like a trap.
Mm.
And it's so shocking at first that I had no idea how to react to that. Then examining myself, it's also probably connected to other experiences from an earlier stage of my life, which is not connected to our profession. But anyway, I had experiences with being assaulted, and then I could imagine, that his move just triggers certain memories. But then I find it important to mention that I felt emotionally attacked and exploited many times, I think, in various places in my profession. So it's not sexual harassment, but I think it's an equally important topic to consider, especially in our profession and perhaps in all of the performing arts scene. Like, I'm sure that actors are experiencing similar events as well, and so on. So.
Yeah, thank you. And also, sorry, Sarah.
The word exploited, that is just the perfect word. What you just said, it's how you said it's not a matter of sexual harassment, but that feeling exploited. I think most dancers could probably say that this has definitely happened to them throughout whether it was their training as a teenager or in their career, being that feeling of exploited. I think it's a good word. Sorry, I just had to add that.
Yes, and I think also connecting to this way of touching, we touch so much in dancing, and of course, if it's a natural way during teaching or just in a friendly way, it should be normal and it should not be a problem. But in some cases, it's on the border, and then it's hard to decide whether it's sexual or it's just it's just it's stepping this line where it feels still comfortable. I think it's also sometimes you need to see if you're teaching, for example, that some students take it very well, some students are a bit more shy and they don't want to get so touchy, and I think this question of the touch and how you approach the other bodies is again even for dancers, it's a difficult topic. And I just brought up this sexual topic because I had an experience not in a dance context, but it was at a theater, and I was in an opera. I was an extra, and one of the main singers, there were two. There were two main singers for two. Two casts. And from one cast, the main singer, he was a guest singer, and he was welcomed like a star there, like, oh my god, he came and he's with us. And then he he wrote me in a message one night that he's in this and this hotel and I should go to his room and la la la. And I mean, I handled it, I think, quite okay still. And I said, of course, I'm not going. And I cut it short and there was no continuation. But the problem was that I had a sex scene with him on stage. And so after this, I always had to ask the other girl to do with this cast. And the whole rehearsing process was so difficult because of this. And I didn't go to anyone. I didn't say to anyone. I said I told to some colleagues, but I don't know. It's just I think it's important to say to anyone who experiences something similar that it's okay to go to the director assistant or to go to any of your bosses and to say that this happened, because it's not okay, and it's not okay in a working environment. And actually I'm surprised by myself from today's view, because I was not a teenager. I was in the beginning of my 20s, and I should have handled this in a better way. But somehow in that moment, I felt like, okay, it's just making things more complicated. I might get into danger, or the actor becomes in danger. And yeah, I just didn't want to complicate things. And I thought, I can handle it. I can solve this problem, but it's not my job to solve such a problem in a case like this. So yeah, I just felt like it's important to mention for anyone who will maybe watch this video. And lastly, I would just touch the topic of eating disorders, anxiety at working places, and maybe I ask you, Johannes, because I know that there were some extreme examples at the university, not so many, but there were a few. Maybe you can say a few words about how to handle it if you see such a thing, if you experience that one of your students is struggling with something like this, what to do.
That's another thing where you almost have no chances as an outsider, because they don't understand that this is a disease, or it's not normal. Like I remember 3 cases within the I don't know how many years I'm there now, 20 years, which were really severe, and we had to kind of force a girl to stop, and said, if you're not get a hand or a grip on, how do you say that in Sarah, like grip on this problem, but the problem is that they don't see it as a problem. And as an outsider, you have almost no chance, only if you have the chance to grab them emotionally, that it has to come from themselves, that they need to understand, they need to change. Otherwise, to say it really dramatically, they die. And it goes that far. Because they still think they need to train more and eat less, and everyone else sees it, and we were addressing them, and they of course were denying, said no, we're not, no, I'm fine, and it's part of this illness, that they themselves convince them that they are fine and that this is normal. If you address the people directly, they will deny, they say no, it's not a problem. If you address the family, also the family many times deny. They say no, that this is not a problem. They need to come to a moment where they realize, okay, if I'm not gonna change now, something really severe happens. The only thing what we as a board of teachers can do is to provide them with the idea what is healthy, and that we don't demand certain aesthetics. Yeah, but it's a very complex problem. Like I felt that those 3 times, out of those 3 times, 2 times I was really involved with them, and and you know, the worst was that one of them we sent to the psychiatrist, and he said, no, she's not having a disorder, but it's so obvious that she is, and I know the signs. And we're like, okay, what can you do? It's like, yeah, it's one of those moments where you feel so helpless, really completely helpless, and I have no idea what to do.
And sorry, just what was the outcome of these cases? Do you know about these students? Something
I know one of them got into a psychosomatic clinic, and it was always women, and she got over it. The other 2 are still having the problem. They're both still continuing dancing, and you know, my thing was always that I tried to, which didn't work at all, I tried to tell them the hard facts, saying, okay, if you're not doing this, your biochemistry goes bad, and this is what's going to happen, and I can see it on your body, it's already happening, and you're gonna develop this and this and this. But I didn't succeed, but both of them are still dancing. Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah, would you continue? You were more involved in the ballet world, and also now you teach ballet for the pre-professionals. I don't know if you have experienced such a thing with young students or with not young students. What we'd call it.
With the dance companies, with the ballet companies I worked for, there was always one, well, in this case, they were female, that had issues, whether it was an eating disorder or bulimia, and often would be in the dressing room, and our colleague would be in the toilet. So this was always really awkward. We also had other dancers in the company who were outspoken and they just basically spoke everybody else's mind and just went straight to these people and spoke to them. It's hard. Well, to watch my colleagues do this to themselves and my friends was really, really hard, and I didn't know how to approach it. And so I never really did, because I always thought, well, a professional needs to do this. As a teacher now, I have had, well, in the pre-professional program now, there is no problems. But in the past, I've had one student who was really bad, like also in and out of hospital. And it got to the point where she got very, what would you say, the obsessive disorder. She was constantly contacting me and writing very personal messages, and she was very obsessive she didn't know how often she should be dancing, and was constantly contacting me saying she's not doing enough and how much she should be doing. But she was taking every word I said seriously, like she was going by what I was saying. And this was really freaking me out, because I at first was just trying to be a mentor as a teacher, and then I realized this was going a little bit too far. It was out of my comfort zone. I thought, I'm not the right person to now mentor her with which direction she should go with how much dancing. In her very unhealthy case, she was a walking skeleton. And she, in the end, I basically had to stop returning the messages. I basically said to her, you need to seek professional help. I'm not the person to answer these questions. This was probably the most challenging for me in regards to eating disorders with a student. Otherwise, I've approached the parents, and there was one that was looking like she was going that way, and I didn't even approach her. I just completely ignored the situation, but went directly to her family and just said, oh, you know, how are you approaching this? And we had a really good chat. They were not in denial. They were aware of it and were already seeking help. But it's a very touchy situation. It's like what Johannes said, there's not really much you can do unless they realize they need the help. They need to seek the help. They need to realize it and not be in denial.
Thank you. And my very last question and topic firstly to Jirce and Jula and to the both of you, Sarah, Johannes, is that what do you think about having regular talks, for example, for companies or for university students about everything, what they live in, their environments, their problems, their needs, because I feel like sometimes dancers are not very good in communication and they are not speaking out loud. And the first reason why I wish to do such a roundtable talk, and I still wish to do such things live and with people around listening and with the Q&A and everything, is because I feel like dancers are often gossiping. They have their opinions. I don't know, they like to discuss who's the best, who's the worst, who's getting the biggest roles, who's not getting any roles. But it's often not open enough. And so my question would be, do you think it would be needed? And if yes, what do you think? What would be the best way to make them communicate with each other in a group? Jirce?
I'm just trying to connect my thoughts because I am totally up for it, but at the same time I'm also not up for it, but not in a very specific direct way, because I often feel like dancers or talks with dancers, we love to talk and we talk, but without any specific outcome or goal, or the talk doesn't really move anything, does anything have an impact or change. Therefore I would totally be up for them with a specific goal towards them, even if it's like to educate or involve younger dancers to really hear. And I think the way it works, it's really good to have a topic like we have right now and someone that is connecting the whole thing, so leading it, so it doesn't end up wrapped into our own too personal therapy kind of session, which I think that would be really great. So I think I'm really up for it also to maybe pass some of the knowledge or experiences we have as older dancers to younger generation. I think it's nice to also be aware of these kind of things. But I really feel like these discussions have to have a certain goal to move something, that we just don't talk and discuss, but that then they have an actual impact. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. Tell me if I'm
Yes,
not.
absolutely. And I think we all know what you mean. Also, there was a phase during our education when the teacher said, guys, but ask. And then the whole class was about asking bullshit. That was obvious, and they just asked because it took the time and we didn't have to move during this time of explanation. So yes, a certain topic and goal and a lead to it is great to have. Thank you. And Jula, please continue, and then Sarah and Johannes would be the order so that I don't have to interrupt again.
There are again a couple of things I thought to add to this topic. After these 90-ish minutes, you might get used to the fact that I usually come up with a number of thoughts I would like to add. One of them being at the academy where I did my studies back in the days, which is the Budapest Contemporary Dance Academy. There used to be a so-called forum So every Monday after our dance classes, after lunch break, all of the students would gather. It used to be, it still is, a small academy. So I think at its peak time, it was around 60 students maybe altogether. I'm just saying that so you could understand that it was still relatively easy to gather all the students in one big studio. And the idea of the forum was to propose topics, questions that had to be discussed about everyday life within the academy or long-term questions, etc. Now, the execution of these forums were not always, or most of the time, they were far from this idealistic concept, which I just explained. However, I think, looking back, I think it gave me a certain support to become brave enough to express my opinion and to ask. So I think in a way, this could be a good practice to implement in an education system, to create a space and time for this sort of, to have a dedicated space and time for talking. That's one thing. And then another thing that came to my mind is that for the past couple of years, there are two steady teaching jobs I'm experiencing. One of them being a summer festival here in Budapest, which gathers people from international people. They are mostly young. And when I say young, I mean, late teenagers, in their early 20s. Professionals or kids who are studying in order to become professionals one day. So that's the level and the mentality you would get there. And my experience teaching my workshop at this festival is that on a Monday, I would start my class asking, how do you feel? What's up? And there would be silence. But I keep asking this question every single time I start the class. And on Friday, the kids would know, we learned it's important to share with each other that my elbow hurts and I'm feeling a little, blue or whatever. So I see some sort of a small process in providing, again, a moment for a chance to have a communication, to have a discussion. And thirdly, the other job that I'm having, it's a bit complicated. You might have heard about events happening at the University of Theatre and Film in Hungary in these past months. And I think I'm having a job there, but I'm not sure if I'm having a job there, which means I still give classes, but I'm not certain whether, this is still considered to be a legal thing to do. I don't know. It's very complicated, and I don't want to waste your time with this part of the story. But again, there I have the experience of working with the same kids, once or twice a week for a longer period of time. And even though they are studying to become actors, so naturally for them to express themselves through spoken language is a bit easier. But at the same time, they grew up in Hungary, which is, this old school Prussian education system where your name is shut up and you are just meant to do what you are being told to do. And again, I start every class by asking, how do you do? What's happening? What's up with you right here, right now? And for example, this year I started to teach in a class I haven't been teaching before. And in these 4 months, I see the development, the evolution of becoming able to communicate. And I keep stressing every single day that communication is what is the essential important element to me in our relationship. So now I see these days, these last 2 weeks, they arrive to understand, okay, this is the dude who who's not going to be angry if I'm not on the class, if I tell him why I couldn't go. But I think that was my responsibility to create this environment. So yes, I do strongly believe in the importance of talking and communication. And I also believe that there are various ways how to do it, and we could be conscious about the way we propose talks.
I'm next, aren't I? Yeah. I think that's really great what you're doing with the communication, and I might have to steal that a little bit from you and do the same with my own students. I think it's great. I think we have that that physical integration with dance, but not the verbal. And I know from my own personal experience when I was studying, we never had that. We didn't communicate, and it was just the teachers talking, and that was it. And we just got told off if we talked. And I think this is a really good incentive to ask how you're going every day, and trying to develop some sort of communication between the students. I like the idea of the forums. This is really good. I think having a forum, I never had that either. I think having some sort of forum where you can talk. I know that my daughter, she has here just at school, normal high school, they have like a Klassenvorstand. I think that's called the home room teacher. And I know that they have these classes a few days a week, and they just talk. And I think this is great. And I think, why can't this be also introduced into a dancing program, whether it's an undergraduate or just a pre-professional program? I also like the idea of mentoring or guiding students who want to become professionals with stories, antidotes. But like what Jetse says, you need some sort of reason or some sort of concept for that meeting. Is it auditions? How do I audition? Or how do I go about it? Or what's company life like? Or what's project life like as a dancer? Or having a choreographer's perspective of what he looks for, what she looks for in a dancer, or a director's. I think these sort of ideas would be really, really nice for undergraduate students to have this opportunity to listen to other people's stories. I never had it. I would have loved it. I think it would have been really beneficial. But that's all I have to say. Johannes, on to you.
Same with me. We never had that. Like, there was no discussion. Like, it's said and it's to be done. Punto. That's it. So and now, listening to you three, I was kind of flashbacking, how do you say, what happened the last 18 years at the university. And I think we underwent different phases of non-communication, trying to communicate. It didn't work. It has to do a lot with the whole atmosphere within an institution. And I think I had the best talks always when I was working with them with the students, like in repertoire or composition, where I got to get to know them better. And then me being a teacher, also now getting always older and older in comparison to my students, there is a gap. It was so much easier when I was 31 and my students were 20 or 25. I was closer to them, and then it was easier to talk. Now it's already 3 generations more or less in between, and it's just different for me to approach them and asking, because maybe it's just in my mind, but I think they talk easier to someone who is not that old, that far away. I think now when I'm just thinking about the class that I'm working now with, which is the first year, and funny enough, the COVID situation made us being more talkative together, because we are not so busy with moving, because you could not. So there was more space and more options to talk and to get to know them. And just to summarize everything, I think it's super important. It's very important that the people are not scared to talk, that there is the atmosphere of course, there's always the student and the teacher, but still, like, discussion wise, it should be on one level, which goes again into the trust. I like very much, we had it at the university, and I don't think we have it still, because I was off the university now, that one person is in charge of 1 year. And this person is like a Klassenvorstand, what you said, and you have time to talk with them. But I think it's not happening right now in this situation anyway. But yeah, I think it would be cool and very, very important for the dancers to, for the students and the dancers, also in companies, to have an option to talk and to be heard, because sometimes also being on the complete other side, I think we know what their problems are, but we have no clue. We really have no clue, because we always measure it with our thoughts and our needs, and then we find out we're completely wrong. Yeah.
Thank you so much. If someone would have still a comment, please do it now. Otherwise, I really thank you for all of your time. And I know it was a long, long day. It was almost 2 hours now. And I hope I will get better in this. And I will, I also didn't use my English now, so I'm a bit like, but I hope I will get better, and then it goes a bit more fluently, and the next ones will not be 1 hour 15 minutes long. But I hope you've learned something. I hope it was nice to see all of you, and yes, have a good night. If someone would like to say still something, please.
No, I definitely am very thankful for the last round we just had. It gave me a lot of thoughts. Yeah.
Great.
And yeah, Gyula, thank you for what you said. Very important. Very important. Yeah.
Super.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree, especially in the education environment, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good.
And we only touched the surface of this topic, so we could go endless with this. But I think at one point we need to sleep also. So thank you, Gyula, Sarah, Jirce, Johannes. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you for the whole
Thank you.
platform, Esther. And thank you, guys. Very nice getting to know you, Gyula. It's been a pleasure.
You too. I'm very happy, and thank you for the invitation and sharing all your thoughts and opinions and your time. I'm very happy to be part of this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They are trying to be strict. We are in a lockdown, everything is closed, but people act like there is nothing. No, Jack.
The next dog.
The next dog.
I think we all have dogs, no? I was
Could
thinking
that
about
our
this.
dog also enters, yes.
Look at him.
Gyula also has a dog.
Look.
Oh, it's a dog meeting.
It's a dog meeting.
Like we leave and we just leave the dogs to stay here. That's it.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So Gyula, everyone, this is Johannes, Jürze, Sarah, and other way around, and me. So